There's a particular kind of light that falls over the Rocky Mountains just before the sun goes down. A slow, golden quiet that settles across the peaks and pours into the valleys below. If you've ever seen it, even once, you don't forget it. John Denver knew that light better than almost anyone. He had stood inside it 1,000 times, on trails above timberline where the air thins and the sky turns a shade of blue that doesn't have a proper name. On mornings when the Rockies were still wrapped in shadow and the only sound was the wind moving through the pine. He called Colorado home. He wrote songs about it. He named himself after it, or near enough. The mountains were in his music, his photographs, his whole identity. People who knew him said that when he was in those mountains, he was more himself than anywhere else on earth. But there was something John Denver said, more than once, that stopped people who heard it. Something that didn't quite fit the image of the man who sang about country roads and sunshine and the high, wide sky. He said, "The mountains are beautiful, but they don't know your name." It was the late 1970s. John was at a point in his life when he had everything a person could point to and call success. The records, the specials on television, the tours, the stadiums, the kind of fame where strangers felt like they already knew you. And the mountains, always the mountains. Starwood, his home outside Aspen, where the elk came through the property in the morning, and the silence at night was so complete you could hear your own heartbeat. He was sitting outside one evening, somewhere above the valley. The sky had gone from gold to rose to that deep, bruised blue that comes just before the first stars appear. And he was looking out, the way you do when you're taking stock of something, not quite naming it yet. And below him, maybe half a mile down the slope, he could see the lights of the house. Small and warm. Windows glowing. Someone moving inside. He would say later that something shifted in him in that moment. Not dramatically, not with any great announcement, just quietly, the way realizations often come when you're finally still enough to receive them. The mountain hadn't changed. It was still magnificent, still vast, still ancient, still the thing that made him feel small in the best possible way. But it wasn't what called him home. The lights in the valley were what called him home. John Denver loved nature then, way some people love God, with awe, with devotion, with the sense that something larger than yourself was always just on the other side of what you could see. He fought for clean air and clean water. He testified before Congress. He believed with everything in him that the earth deserved to be tended, not just used. But he also knew, and this is what made him more than just a nature poet, he also knew that the deepest belonging in his life didn't come from the landscape. It came from the people. His family. Old friends who had been there before the fame arrived. The people who called him by his real name, Henry. The people who knew what he was like when the guitar was in the corner and the cameras were off, and he was just a man, tired sometimes, uncertain sometimes, looking for a way back to himself. He talked about this in interviews, carefully, the way people speak about things they're still figuring out. He said that a beautiful place could lift you, but it couldn't hold you. That beauty could silence the noise in your head, but it couldn't answer the questions your heart kept asking. That home, real home, was never a geography. It was a recognition, the feeling of being known. "There is a difference," he said once, "between a place where you feel at peace and a place where you feel at home. A place where you feel at peace you might find on a mountaintop. A place where you feel at home you find in the eyes of someone who loves you without needing you to be more than you are." John Denver spent much of his adult life searching for both, and he was honest enough in quiet moments to admit that he didn't always find them in the same place, that the mountains gave him peace, but the people, his children, the friends who stayed close, the love he carried through all the changes of his life, that was what made any of it feel like it meant something. He said that whenever he had been away for too long, on the road, on tour, somewhere that wasn't home, the thing he missed wasn't the view from Starwood. It wasn't the smell of pine and cold air, or the sound of the creek behind the house. It was a voice, a face. Someone sitting across a table from him who already knew the whole story and didn't need him to explain a single thing. There were nights, he once described, when he would finish a concert, 2 hours on stage, 10,000 people on their feet, and walk back to the dressing room, and the silence that followed was unlike any other silence he had ever known. Not peaceful, not restful, just empty. The kind of empty that comes when the noise stops and you realize the noise had been filling something up. He said that was the moment he understood why he was always so eager to get home. Not to Colorado, exactly. Not to the mountains. But to the people. To the faces that didn't need anything from him. To the arms that held him not because of the songs he had written, but simply because he was there and they were glad. He lost some of those people over the years, the way all of us do. Marriages ended, friendships frayed. The distances that fame creates, not just physical distance, but a kind of invisible wall, can make even the people who love you feel slightly unreachable. He knew that. He spoke about it with the honesty of someone who had paid a real price. But what he held on to, what came through in everything he wrote and said and sang, was the conviction that home was still possible. That as long as there were people who truly knew you, who saw you without the performance, who could sit with you in silence and make that silence feel warm rather than empty, you were never actually lost. He would look at those lights in the valley and feel something the mountains never quite gave him. Not the grandeur, not the freedom, something smaller and truer. The feeling that someone down there was waiting, that someone down there knew his name. Maybe you felt this too. Not on a mountainside, necessarily, but somewhere, standing in a parking lot after a long drive, or walking through an airport, or sitting in a place that everyone else called beautiful, and feeling, underneath all of it, that pull. That quiet insistence that somewhere else someone was home, and you needed to get back to them. Maybe you felt what it's like to be in a perfectly comfortable place and still feel lost. Because comfort isn't the same as belonging. A nice room is not the same as home. And a beautiful view is not the same as feeling known. So let me ask you something, and take your time with it. Where is home for you, really? Not the address, not the place you sleep, but the place you feel known. The place where you don't have to perform or explain or keep anything inside. Who are the people that make wherever you are feel like home? The ones who call you by your name, your real name, the one that belongs to who you actually are. The ones who sit with you in silence and make that silence feel safe. The ones you think of when you're far away. If you can name those people, even one of them, then you already know where home is. And the beautiful thing, the thing John Denver spent half a lifetime learning, is this. Home isn't somewhere you have to get back to. It's something you carry. The mountains don't know your name, but someone does. Maybe it's been a while since you told them what they mean to you. Maybe life moved quickly the way it does, and the things you meant to say got set aside for later, for a better moment, for when things settled down a little. Maybe tonight is a good time to change that. Not with anything grand, not with a speech or declaration. Just a call, a message. Sitting down next to someone and letting them feel that they are your home. Because here is something worth remembering. The people who make us feel at home, they often don't know they're doing it. They just show up. They just stay. And somewhere in that quiet, consistent presence, something in us relaxes and says, yes, here. This is where I belong. That is a gift worth naming out loud. Not just feeling, but naming. Telling someone, you are home to me. You are where I come back to. You are the lights in the valley when everything else has gone dark. John Denver stood on his mountain and looked at the lights in the valley, and something in him understood what the mountains, for all their beauty, could never give him. You don't have to go looking for it. It's already there. In the people who know your name, in the warmth of wherever they are. That's home. It always was. Take a slow breath and let that sit for a moment.